You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how are we doing tonight?
Dude, I'm happy it's Friday. Early Merry Christmas to you and everyone who's turning in here on a Friday night, trying to get ready for semifinals. So hopefully it works well for everybody. But we got a full slate. So I'm excited about that. We got some games on Saturday, some games on Sunday, multiple games on Monday. Like there's not going to be any shortage of football to watch in between the festivities of sitting down with the family and going through a little Christmas joy.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. Be a good one. And there's some really good games this weekend here as well, right? Like some of these weekends this season, we're kind of looking through and going, oh, there might be one game, maybe two. Okay. There's some pretty good slate of games here coming down the stretch, and should be some good football through it. We had a better than expected matchup there from what, especially from a fantasy perspective, on Thursday night. So that was good. The
only guy who forgot to show up was Alvin Kamara.
Yeah. Yep. I'm a little bitter about the performance of both Olave and Puka. I could have used both. I could have used that last week. Not gonna lie. But we were talking about this a little bit before the show, that it would be my luck that since I made the exit last week in the playoffs, that this would be the week that I would have the highest scoring team in the home league. Like that's just the way that seems to go. So anyway, that is my luck, and I'm sure that's the way that'll turn out. So definitely bolstered by the performance of both Puka Nacua and Chris Olave from the Thursday night. So any news, notes, anything like that you want to hit up here before we start kind of looking through some games?
Nothing too crazy, right? Like Stroud out, Lawrence not cleared yet. Michael Pittman was weird. Like I got a notification saying that he was going to go, and then it changed back to questionable. So I didn't get a chance with how Stroud was kind of coming on it before the concussion. So we'll see how some of that shakes out.
Yeah, it should be a good slate of games. Should be an interesting deal here. So, and guys, if you have any questions, right, like that is the Friday night fantasy football huddle, the old bet set snap week 16. So make sure that you're throwing your questions in there. Let's get everybody ready to rock and or roll. If you'd like to do both, you can for this week 16 in the semifinals matchups. Right, I know some folks are starting to enter into. Right, they're doing the 2 week, and this is their championship, first week of the championship deal there. So there's lots to play for, and cash and trophies on the line. Let's go get it. If you have questions, throw them out there. Let's talk about those things and get you guys fully set, ready to rock and roll around week 16 here. So anything else we want to hit up, or should we start diving into some of the slate of games here?
Now let's dive into it, man. It's kind of a slower news week, right? Obviously, the Cowboys are getting bashed for what they didn't do in Buffalo. Miscellaneous things, but I wouldn't call much of it newsworthy for our content purposes. I'm sure we could spend an hour or so talking about some of the random things, but none of it was really impactful to what we're trying to get done here for everybody.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, let's just go ahead and jump right on into it. We've got the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Cincinnati is favored by 3. The Steelers are the over-under on this one is set at 37.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm going to take Cincinnati to cover this. They've really been playing well. The defense has been stepping up. The offense has looked good under Jake Browning, right? He has not he has not been a giant step back from Joe Burrow. And not to say that this trend will continue forever, but if you're a Bengals fan, you have to be really happy with what your backup quarterback's doing right here. And the kid's given himself an opportunity, whether it's a bigger contract with Cincinnati for them to hedge their bets or protect themselves, right, in case of injury, if you will, or if it's trade fodder or anything else. But Jake Browning's doing a hell of a job setting himself up for a potential payday of some sort. So good on him. But I am going to take the under through all that. I'm going to take Cincinnati to cover, but I'm taking the under. I'm just not impressed with what Pittsburgh's doing offensively. Both defenses have enough grit in them that I think this kind of stays low scoring. And when it's all said and done with, it wouldn't surprise me if this game was 24 to 13. I mean, just kind of right there, right? You're kind of right there, but with Cincinnati kind of clearly taking control at the end.
Fair enough. I think I'm going to lean on the Cincinnati. I'm right there with you on this thing. I think that they get this thing done. This is one of those that I do really like the call of the under and kind of that deal. But this one here is also one that it feels like we could get. That this game could be getting into the eggnog here on Christmas Eve. So I'm going to say that we're going to see this thing catch the over just slightly. But it's not going to surprise me if this one ends up in a 21 to 18 type of range here. So I'm going to take the over. I don't feel super good about it, but I am taking the over just slightly. One of the props that I really liked was Browning to go over 239.5 passing yards.
I have Joe Mixon over 47.5 rushing yards. He's been playing really well as of late, and I think this number's extremely achievable for him.
Yeah, I like that call. That should be a good one. All righty, let's hit up this next matchup. We got the Bills, we got the Chargers, and Buffalo favored by 12.5. The over-under is 43.5. Thoughts on this one?
This almost feels like a trap, but I'm going to fall right into it. Buffalo, a team that's playing really well at the moment. The Chargers, a team that look so bad right now. This might be the biggest mismatch, at least on paper, that we have. No Keenan Allen for the Chargers. Easton Stick is still quarterback. Austin Eckler has been nowhere to be found. There's just nothing that really spells good for the LA Chargers in this game. So I'm taking Buffalo to cover the 12.5. I'm going to take the under mainly because I don't think LA is going to be able to score enough points. Like you could see this game be 30-10.
Mm-hmm.
And Buffalo still have such a comfortable lead that they're just not going to be pushing for points here. So taking the under 43 is a little bit too much, but Buffalo I think does win this fairly easily.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that this is, and that 30-10 is really kind of the number that I had in my mind when I was going through that and looking at that. So I really do like that call there. I'm taking Buffalo. I'm taking the under. And I can't even blame that the Chargers, lack of production is because of Brandon Staley. That was my favorite go-to, but no longer can use that the excuse for the Chargers. Anyway, prop. I'm going to take Austin Eckler to go under 10.5 rushing attempts.
There you go. I'm going to take Josh Palmer over 3.5 receptions. Like I do. The Chargers are going to have to throw the ball to stay in this game. Obviously, no Keenan Allen. Like Josh Palmer is, I mean, Quentin Johnston is there, but Josh Palmer is going to have to be the guy. And I think he can come down with 4 or 5 grabs in this game. 3.5 might just be a touch light for him.
Yeah, very well could be. All righty, let's take a look at Sunday. And we're going to see the Indianapolis Colts take on the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons favored by 2.5, the over-under 44.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm going to take Indy. They're playing just a little bit better here at the moment. The Falcons have been reeling. They're going back to Taylor Heineke, but that doesn't solve your Arthur Smith problem. And the Arthur Smith problem is he refuses to get the ball in the hands of his playmakers, and it doesn't seem to matter which one it is. He would much rather play with Tyler Algier and Jonnu Smith than Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and Bijan Robinson. So I'm pulling for the Colts. I'm hoping for a Colts win because at this point, the more games the Falcons lose, the higher the chance that Arthur Smith doesn't come back, and it at least gives a hope for a little bit of a sophomore rebound for Bijan because, you know, not necessarily a fault of his own, but I don't know that there's been a bigger first round disappointment than Bijan Robinson. And that's with some injuries that have happened along the way.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly frustrating. You see the talent, you see him be able to make moves and really showcase a lot of skills out there, and then just not be utilized. So the Arthur Smith problem is real in Atlanta for a fantasy perspective there, right? And at this point, you can't even say that it's we're making moves to try and win games, because at 6-8, that's just not happening. That's just not coming to fruition there. So somebody will have to explain to me how trying to make moves to win means keeping the ball out of your skilled playmakers' hands, and the better skilled playmakers' hands. And in fact, 3 top 10 draft picks. So anyway, moving on before I keep going down the rabbit hole there, I'm going to take Indy. I do hope that Indy just kind of comes out and puts a wallop on this one. I do think that the over comes into play here. Indianapolis just seems to find a way to get to 30 points in almost every game. So the fact that the Falcons will stumble around and maybe find their way into 17 points, I think that we'll see the over on this thing come through. One of the props I really liked was Josh Downs to go over 37.5 receiving yards.
Right on. Because of said Arthur Smith problem that you and I spent a lot of this matchup talking about, I'm taking Bijan under 59.5 rushing yards. He splits the ball up too stinking much. And while the Colts do give yardage up, I don't think that the Falcons are going to be able to capitalize on it.
Fair enough. All righty. I like it. Let's go ahead and actually head over to the comments here. We got a couple of comments, questions coming in here. And again, guys, if you have comments, questions, throw them in the chat. Let's talk about these things. Let's get you guys ready, set to rock and roll here for week 16. Hollywood Titan saying, what up? Not much. We just talking some football and talking some spreads here and some overs, some unders, some props, breaking down the games, doing some good fun stuff here. Alrighty, Big Trev has the question: PPR, flex, Ferguson, Brandon Cooks, Thielen, Jalen Warren. He's leaning Ferg. He's favored, and he's looking for floor.
I would say Ferguson's your floor. I like that. Right now, I think he has the highest projected yardage total of all of them. He's going to be involved in this offense for the Cowboys. We know that. So I think it's a safe, 4 to 5 catches. Cooks could equal that, but I mean, he could also only have 2 for 17, right? Like we've seen that. So I think Ferguson's your good floor there. You'd like for Warren to be, but again, this Pittsburgh offense scares the crap out of me. And when you're getting down to here and you're favored, the last thing I want to do is put it up to a Pittsburgh player to have to help my chances get into the finals. So I think Brandon Ferguson is going to be your player.
Yeah, I like
Jake
that
Ferguson. One. Sorry, I said Brandon. Jake Ferguson.
Fair enough. I like the Ferguson call there, right? As much as I was trying to talk myself into leaning like Adam Thielen, something like that, right? That Carolina offense has dramatically changed over the last few weeks. And Adam Thielen certainly not being the centerpiece that we saw in that offense through the beginning and mid part of the season here. So
yeah, if Carolina wants to pound the ball, they want to run it like 30 times. If Chuba was in that mix, I'd say hell yeah, you're playing Chuba, no question asked. I can't believe I'm even audibly speaking that Chuba Hubbard is like a smash floor play for what he would need. But thank goodness I don't have to say that out loud. So take it back.
All righty. I like it. I am going to also say Ferguson on this one, right? Like Kevin laid it out very well, and I'm just going to jump on that bandwagon as well. So Ferguson's the call for both of us. I like it. All righty. Next matchup, we got the Seahawks. We got the Titans. Seahawks favored by 3.5. The over under 41.5. Thoughts on this game?
I take Seattle to cover this 3.5. The hook scares me just a little bit, if I'm being really honest, just with them coming off the road, off of a big win with Philly. But the Tennessee team, it sounds like Ryan Tannehill starting, which in itself is interesting. Derrick Henry's been kind of hit or miss here lately, and more miss than hit, unfortunately, as he's kind of limping into the playoffs here on teams, but never. It doesn't all that necessarily doesn't matter. But I'm going to take Seattle there. I'm going to take the under, and I think both teams are going to be pretty happy to just try and run the ball about 30 times a piece and only air it out when you have to. Gino, I don't think we're going to ask as much out of him coming back from that groin injury. And Seattle will find a way to get a touchdown late here to pull themselves away and cement the win.
Yeah, I like that as well. I don't think we're going to see a ton of points put up in this one. I do like Seattle to kind of find a way to just get it done. One of the props I really like, Tajay Spears to go over 13.5 receiving yards. The simple fact that, we may see Tannehill in this one. We may see a few more checkdowns on this thing. And typically we've seen Spears get a whole lot more, he certainly seems to get a higher snap share percentage too when Tannehill's under center. So I like the odds there that he manages to get 13.5 receiving yards or more.
No, I like that one. I actually took his running mate because I do not think Derrick Henry will get to his 8.5 receiving yards. For many of the things that you said, Tannehill doesn't really throw it to Derrick Henry. Like, he's not involved in the screen game. The Titans have to be looking forward, right? Like, it's pretty obvious that Derrick Henry's not coming back next year, at least in my eyes. So I like the idea that they're feeding Spears. And because of that, Henry is going to be under 8.5 receiving yards.
Fair enough. I like it. Let's go ahead and hit up the question. We got Connor asking, pick one tight end, one flex to full PPR, Kincaid, McBride, Palmer, Downs, Ridley, London, Jalen Warren to smash on McBride for the tight end.
Cosign.
Yeah. Like and I think I texted you this last week when Kyler seems to only have eyes for McBride.
And I love it.
Yeah. Like you put the tight end in there that's probably going to see double-digit targets. Kincaid, goose egg last week. I don't know that that's going to change much. Like, we'll see Dalton Kincaid probably get some points, but Trey McBride is both ceiling and floor play on that tight end. So smash. As far as a flex full point PPR, which way are you leaning?
I'm pinned between Ridley and London. For me personally, I don't love Palmer's matchup. Yes, I just think I just said he's going to be over his receiving total prop, but 3 catches for 45 yards may not do it for you there, right? So Ridley or London. London has the easier matchup in my eyes, so I do kind of want to lean there. He's also at home, so I think that helps a little bit. Ridley, the last couple weeks, in fact, he's been putting decent numbers together. But without Trevor Lawrence, that does scare me a little bit. This one's a little uncomfortable. I'm going to lean London by a hair and only a hair. So, Derek, if you are leaning the other way, you might easily be able to persuade me because I think it's a coin flip between Ridley and London.
Okay. Well, I'm taking a look here and just seeing where my thoughts kind of lie. So you're right. Drake London certainly does have the better matchup. But are we really willing to say that Ridley gets that much downgraded, based on Trevor Lawrence not being the guy to throw him the ball, versus Taylor Heineke being the guy to try and throw the ball to London, right? Like I don't know that necessarily is going to change much there. I do think that Ridley actually probably becomes a little bit more of a safety blanket for Jacksonville here versus Drake London. Realistically, like even Drake London's ceiling play, I probably see him very like wide receiver 26, 27 sounds about right. Like as far as like a ceiling goes, floor, bottom end wide receiver 3. So 27 to 36 is kind of where I see his range on that one. Calvin Ridley, I think that you could potentially see him get up there around wide receiver 18 with a range down to 30. So yeah, bigger range there, but I think that Calvin Ridley will find more volume and will have a much better opportunity to and will ultimately have the more chances to get things done there. So it's Ridley. It's close, but it is Ridley on that one. Does Trevor playing not change anything? And he's talking about T-Law, of course. It does a little bit, but not a ton, right? Like both of these guys are essentially getting the second string quarterback throwing them the ball.
Yeah, if Lawrence plays, I think it might be just enough to inch it over the top for me. So, I mean, I guess the good thing is that, well, Derek's a little bit more definitive on Ridley than I am on London. So, but I do think if Law plays, I think I might slide the Ridley side. And overall, Derek might be right. It might just be better off. Tampa Bay's been okay against the pass. Not great here the last 4 weeks, but man, now I'm just rambling trying to make up my mind. Sorry.
So some of it too is right. Like this is where Connor, I'd be curious to know. He's saying he's appreciating the convo here. What I'd be very curious to know is are you projected to win or are you projected to lose? Right? Like, do you need ceiling or do you need more of a floor play? Right? Because if we're talking a flex, we're talking about a guy that you need to either try and swing the tide for you or just not lose you the game in a lot of cases. He's projected to win. So floor play is where I'd be going on this one, right? So if we're looking floor play for a flex between Palmer, Downs, Ridley, London, Jalen Warren.
If we're looking for a floor play, I think I'd rather have Ridley just because I've seen too many stinkers out of London.
Yeah, I mean, Ridley,
he is coming off a back. I mean, they just had a couple back-to-back brutal weeks. Right. The Jacksonville Jaguars did, right? Cleveland and Baltimore. This should look like a much easier matchup for them. Okay, I'm going to swing towards Ridley. And the two guys, I think they'll be within 2 points of each other when it's all said and done with. But I am going to pivot back over to Ridley here after fumbling around.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Ridley as well. Just I think that you're going to get a lot more volume play on this one, right? Like even in those tough matchups, Ridley was still getting double-digit targets. That didn't really turn much into fantasy, and some of those were just a lot of junk targets. But better opportunities or consistent opportunities with a better matchup could mean bigger things there. And Connor saying that his lineup right now: Josh Allen, Bijan, Swift, CD. Lamb, Rice are the main locks on his team.
I like that.
Yeah, and with that, I think you'd be fine rolling out Ridley. That'd be how I'd set that. I'd rock and roll it that way. So, and the Fun Football Podcast tuning in saying, "Hey guys, what's going on?" So, appreciate everybody tuning in. If you got questions, let's make sure we're hitting those things up. Let's chat about it here. getting everybody set for the semifinals, getting everybody set for the Week 16 matchups here. Fun football guys. Asking, do we think Devonta Smith is going to play this week?
No. I think Philadelphia should be able to beat the Giants without Devonta Smith. Like, if there's going to be a game to miss, it is knowing that 2 out of the next 3 weeks you have Devonta Smith. You know that you have a lighter schedule than the Cowboys do. So yes, you're still fighting for that divisional lead, but what this late in the season, what a better game to miss would be, I don't really know, right? Than to miss this Giants game. So I think it's precautionary. I think that they are going to do a whole lot with the running backs. You're going to see Goddard probably a little bit more involved and a hell of a lot of AJ Brown. Now, the way the Eagles have been playing offensively, they need to challenge themselves to be a little bit more special and unique, right? It looks a little bit too mundane, a little bit too predictable right now. And I think Seattle picked up on that. But the Giants, they are playing for pride. It is a divisional matchup. They'd like to play spoiler for sure, but the Giants did not look good last week when I really thought that they might be able to give New Orleans kind of a run, and they really did fall flat. So I'm starting to think the Giants might be thinking about their trip to the Bahamas and not so much about football.
Fair enough. Yeah, you're right. Like he missed the practice today. I don't, when you got guys missing practice this late in the week and not even logging limited, I would not be leaving that up to Monday night to try and have to pivot away from. So your pivots get a lot less comfortable that way. So I'd be planning on him not playing and making moves accordingly.
And even if he does play, the chances of him having a monster game with Goddard and AJ Brown in the lineup, historically, we'll tell you slim, very slim. Like, if Smith blows up, typically Goddard's not in the lineup. And I think there's only been one game where him and AJ Brown have, maybe two, where him and AJ Brown have both played, where Smith has been like clear cut the guy in the offense that day. So, and the Monday night game, I wasn't even thinking about that, Derek. With them playing Monday night, I think that seals it. Like, I'm not leaving a 0 to chance. Like, I will pivot off of anybody at this point in the season if that's what the risk is. And
nothing's worse than when you're staring down a semifinals playoff matchup and all you need is a guy to roll in on Monday night and put up, a couple of points there, and then he misses the game.
Yeah.
So, and then you're trying to scramble and you're putting in
Zacchaeus or something stupid like that. I mean, you're hoping for a whole lot of crazy. No sense in needing that.
Exactly. Connor asking, how are y'all doing in your leagues? Well, we're alive in a bunch of them. Kevin beat me in the home league this last week, so we're still bitter about it.
Yeah, so we're playing each other actually in 2 other dynasty leagues that we're both in the semis right now. So we'll kind of see who has bragging rights the next time y'all see us on what came out there. I was able to get past Derek in the home league there in our quarterfinals last week in the home league, and then kind of a hodgepodge of some others. Had some others where I snuck through and maybe shouldn't have. Had some others where I didn't make it and thought I should have. But I definitely struggle with Keenan Allen being out. That was a big one. That really kind of stung me a little bit. But I think every league where I have Trey McBride, I'm in the semifinals. Like, he has been kind of my golden child here. He has overcome some subpar running back play, some, the ins and outs of Calvin Ridley or Chris Olave missing last week, right? That hurt a lot of people. So If I have Trey McBride, I'm feeling pretty good about my chances. If I don't, it wasn't as great. But I think it's all right. This year it was a year of attrition, man. Like
Right.
for everybody. This is not unique to Derek or I. It's just everybody. It was a year of attrition and trying to find the next man up and hammering the waiver wire, right? Like teams who were diligent and really grinded out free agency and trying to find trades and everything else did okay for themselves. But if you forgot, oh, I got to check waivers, and you forget and fall asleep and you miss waiver wire runs and that type of thing, it probably didn't work out so well for you this year. There are just too many stinking injuries across the board, multiple position groups. I mean, hell, we're talking, okay, fun football, right? We're talking about Mullins, Flacco, or Geno, right? I feel you, man. Like, good for you that you have options with Stroud going down. But we should be talking, Tua, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, right? I mean, Joe Burrow, Lamar, like those are the guys we should be talking about as semifinal caliber fantasy quarterbacks. And this season, it hasn't worked like that. There's a lot of pivot with Cousins going down and the whole list of charades, right? Just it's been tough.
It has. And actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and just hop right into the QB decision here. Fun Football asking, Stroud's is out for him. Mullins, Flacco, or the Geno?
I think I'm going Flacco.
So am I. I know that the consensus rankings would have both Geno and Nick Mullins over Flacco, but I don't know. At this
Flacco's looked
point,
good, man.
he
Like he has
has.
looked very competent and decisive in that Browns offense. Like he looks better than Deshaun Watson ever did. He really does.
Right.
And I think it's the name value attached to it. If you take out the name, and we talk about this a lot, but if you take out the name and look at the last 3 weeks of what Joe Flacco has done in a blind test compared to just about anybody else, you're going to take Flacco's numbers. Multiple 300-yard games, multiple passing performances. Like, hey, do you want this guy to propel you towards your fantasy championship, or Patrick Mahomes? Compare blind. I mean, if we were to do a blind study and you look at Mahomes' numbers and Joe Flacco's numbers, and you said, these are the last 3 weeks, which guy do you want? I would hit the floor if anyone in a blind study said, oh, I want Mahomes' numbers. The hell you do. The hell you do. Matt Stafford's a better option than Patrick Mahomes has been lately. It just hasn't been good. So I think Flacco's your guy, and I think you can do it with confidence. Like I really do. Like I think there's a level of like, yeah, I can win with this, and not second guessing it at all.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually going through and doing the whole blind, just kind of looking at it. Yeah, Joe Flacco, last 3 weeks, QB6 during those 3 weeks. Patrick Mahomes, QB14.
Dirty. Yeah, I mean, it good for him, but just dirty.
Right. When and Flacco, you just said it. This looks very good. Has put up 300 plus yards, multiple touchdowns the last 2 weeks. So I'm just gonna keep riding that one, and I'm gonna go the Flacco train here and see what we can do. Fun football podcast saying that they're still alive in one of the 3 leagues and they need to win to hit the championship. So let's go out there and let's get it done.
Heck yeah.
Ajiji, welcome back in, Ajiji. What's up, fellas? Just wanted to say thanks for all your advice. Got bounced from the main league this last week. I feel you. I'm right there with you. Couldn't overcome Herbert, Allen, or Hill. See you guys next season or not. Don't know anymore. Oh, Gigi. Well, it's too much fun to
Yeah, you
to
had a
rock
hell
and
of a
roll this.
run, man. Right? I
did.
mean, this like what we were talking about. The injuries are for real. Like it was not an easy fantasy football managing year. Scoring down, injuries across the board. It was tough, dude, and I feel your pain. There's definitely some leagues where it didn't shake out the way that looking at it on paper, I was like, yeah, I felt pretty stinking good about it. So I feel you, man. But you did have yourself a good year, so don't be too down on the dumps.
Right. Should I regale the folks with the most snake bit team ever when it
Oh
comes to
God, that
injuries?
that pirate league that you're in,
Yes.
that it's just the list of players that are on IR is mind-boggling in that league.
Right. So I'm gonna tell the story here of one of my leagues that going into the playoffs felt incredibly good about the fact that we should just walk away with the championship. Yeah, it's a pirate league. You get to steal players when you win, yada yada yada, right? Going into the first week of the playoffs, CJ Stroud out, Josh Jacobs out, Jonathan Taylor out, Ramondre Stevenson out, Isaiah Pacheco out, Keenan Allen out, Deshaun Watson out, Nick Chubb out, Justin Herbert out, J.K. Dobbins out. Those were all players on my IR and bench. Like it got rough out there. It got rough real quick. So, I feel you on those injuries, and sometimes you know it doesn't matter what you do. You sometimes you can't overcome it, but that's all right. On those ones, there is next year, and it's always a lot of fun. So, as usual, we hope to see you back next year. All right, fun football podcast. Saying what sucks is if Smith's out, he's kind of SOL on the double flex spot. I mean, I'm
What's
sure
on
that
your
there's
waiver wire right now?
right. I'm sure that there's options. Okay, so here you go. So, okay, I got one more question. If Smith is out, I'm really goofed on my second flex. Dobbs, Spears, Everett, or I'll need to pick someone up. What do y'all think? Well, let's dive into your waivers a little bit. What are the best options you've got on your waiver wire? Hit us
We
up
know
in the
you got
chat with those.
quarterbacks you can give up, right? I mean, so you don't even have to drop these guys. I mean, so we know you got a couple quarterbacks that we're not looking at this week, so we can pivot away from or two of them if we have to. But
Right. So, I mean, Watson, I believe, is going to miss time here again. So that does open the door a little bit for Dobbs. But hit us up with what's on the waiver too, and let's see what that looks like. And Connor saying that he can't believe that Joe Flacco is relevant right now, right? Like nobody at the beginning of the season would have looked up at the end of week 15 and went, you know what? You know who I really need as a quarterback going into week 15 fantasy football would be Joe Flacco, Baker Mayfield. Like nobody would have thought at that point that those would even
Jake
be
Browning.
names. Jake Browning. Yes, absolutely. Speaking of Jake Browning, by JR is asking Flacco or Browning.
Both teams are on the road. I'm going to lean Flacco because it's not a divisional game. And as bad as Pittsburgh has been playing, the AFC North when they get together is just a slobber knocker. So I think I'm going to lean Flacco because yes, they're on the road, but it's against a Houston team who doesn't have their starting quarterback, and you can kind of, I think there's a little bit more air to breathe in that one. But I'm not gonna doubt anybody for Browning, but do we know Jamar Chase isn't going, right? So that's one,
Right.
not necessarily a downgrade, but it is. Okay, so you have to have T. Higgins. Okay, we saw he could do that last week. That was nice to see. Tyler Boyd, okay. But you got to think they're going to try and lean on that run game a little bit without having Jamar Chase available. You got to take some pressure off your quarterback when your best receiver can't be on the field. So, and really, that's just part of Cleveland's offense in general. And Flacco has done a really good job slinging it to Amari Cooper and Eli Moore. So, I'm going to say Flacco by a hair. Just by a hair, but I like the fact that it's not a divisional game. That division is not fun when they play each other.
Yeah. I hear you, and especially since you've still got those two teams. Like for whatever reason, when the Bengals and the Steelers line up against each other, like it almost turns chippy and turns chippy quickly. Like this is a two teams that really don't like each other. So I know that I called for the over on this matchup when we were going through that earlier, but again, not going to surprise me if we see a very low scoring affair in this one too. So, that being said, I'm gonna jump on the Flacco bandwagon with you again. But would it surprise me at the end of the day that these two are within a point of each other when the fantasy dust settles? No, wouldn't surprise me if they're that close. But I am going to lean Flacco as well.
270 and 2 from both of them. I
Right.
mean, is extremely possible.
Yep, I would agree. Flacco certainly the choice of topic here tonight. So
That's
I
where
like
we
it.
are, man. It was running backs last year where we had darling running backs that we were trying to get in the rosters. This year, it's trying to find the darling quarterback to keep your team afloat.
Absolutely. So Gigi saying what made it worse, it could have won last week if I played Palmer or Addison, but I was holding out for Tyreek, but I'm projected to smash with the consultation in the with 35 points from Puka. Yeah, that'll certainly help out there for the
Edit, Derek. That helps out.
Yeah. So Gigi, I feel you, man. Like I was last week I had a whole lot of duds put up on my fantasy roster there, right? Like I made the moves. I had Kevin sweating at one point in that matchup, right? Going into it through the morning games, like the underdog was projected to win, like it had swung a little bit there, and then a whole lot of guys just not kind of show up. So I feel you. And then this week I had the both the Puka and Chris Olave experience hit on that roster, and it's looking like I'm probably going to have the highest scoring week of the home league, now eliminated from the playoffs. So I feel you, man. I'm right there with you. I get it, but I can also understand that too, right? Like if I'm gonna, right, like, and I can understand where you're going there on that one, right? Like, do you really want to put your fantasy playoffs on the line playing Josh Palmer or Jordan Addison? Like this is definitely one of those hindsight 2020. If there's a chance Tyreek goes, you're going to play Tyreek over
and it
either
was
one of those
playing
guys.
with Nick Mullins and Easton Stick, right?
Right.
Like, I don't blame you. I don't. I mean, we last Friday or Tuesday. If I'm going down, I want to go down with my studs.
Mm-hmm.
You were trying to go down with your stud, dude. Like it was a late call. It does suck, but I it's the downside of the NFL schedule being spread out like it is. But at the same time, I don't know that I wouldn't have tried to do the same thing, knowing what a big difference Tyreek Hill makes on a roster.
Right. Case in point, right? Like last week, I had the David Montgomery. I had him on the bench when I was playing you, and because I was holding out for Chris Olave because I needed upside on that one. And while David Montgomery was going to get me a very safe floor and did exactly that, I needed every upside shot that I could try and do to win that one. So it was Olave in my flex, and then the late, the late no go, and then trying to pivot off of that. So
Turned out to be your best move.
Well, yes and no, because if I would have known that Olave wouldn't was a for sure thing or not thing, I probably would have had Olave. Anyway, had I known that Olave wasn't going to play, Monty would have been in there, and it wouldn't have been McLaurin that went in there, right? Like it was a late pivot that ended up working out better, but I would not have made that choice willingly had I not had to. So anyway, lots of fun. So again, guys, if you got other questions, comments, let's throw them in the chat here. Let's talk about those things and let's get you guys ready to rock and roll here. Let's go ahead and hit up some more game slate here. We got the Lions, we've got the Vikings, and the Lions favored by 3, the over under 47.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm gonna take Detroit. They really did impress me. I mean, the Broncos definitely laid a goose egg last week, but the Lions did impress me. Like, they are absolutely on a mission. They can close out the division, I believe, if they win this game. And what more could you ask for, right? A motivated team. I think it's going to be a tight game. I'm taking the under only because every time I want the over really bad, I don't get it. I have both receivers, in this matchup, right? I have Jefferson and St. Brown in the home league. So I have a lot of reasons to want this game to have 60 points, and both those guys get fed, 20 targets. But realistically, I think we're probably going to end up basically right at that 47 total. So Detroit and the under.
Fair enough. I'm going to take the over because this is one that I do want to see a lot of points put up, and this might be a little bit more fandom taking over there on this one. But I do think that Detroit closes this one out. One of the props I really like was Monty to go over 5.5 receiving yards.
Very good. I'm going to take St. Brown over 6.5 receptions.
All righty. Go ahead and hit up the next matchup here. We got the Commanders and the Jets. The Jets favored by 3. The over under 37.5. Thoughts on this one?
Jets under, ugly game.
Yeah.
This is damn near the least desirable game on the entire slate.
The next one's not much better, but yes, this one's not one I want to watch. So yeah, I'm going to take the Jets, the under, Gibson over 22.5 rushing yards, just because the total's so low and Brian Robinson not going.
Yeah, I'm going to take Curtis Samuel over 34.5 receiving yards because he's going to be playing out of the slot a little bit more. And if you're going to get yards against the Jets, it's the best place to do it.
Absolutely. All right, let's hit up the next matchup here. We got the Packers. We got the Panthers. Packers favored by 4, over under 37.5.
We'll take Green Bay to win this one on the road and try and continue to make their wild card push. They've been playing better as of late. I do think we see the under here. Carolina's offense is anemic. They want to run the ball 35 plus times this game and really shorten the clock. Green Bay, we'll see their wide receiver room's a little dinged up here at the moment, so we're going to see what that looks like for them. But Jordan Love's been playing pretty well, so I think they come away with this victory, but in a low scoring affair.
Fair enough. I'm going to take Green Bay as well. Again, not a game that I'm really wanting to tune into. I do think we see the under come into play on this one. The good news is for Carolina that you can typically run the ball a little bit against Green Bay, so that should help them out there a little bit. And the fact for Green Bay, you can run the ball against Carolina as well. So I think this is going to be a very fast-moving clock when it's all said and done. I do think that we're going to see Aaron Jones end up having a fairly decent game in this one. I think we see him go over 20.5 receiving yards.
Very good. I'm going to take AJ Dillon over 27.5 rushing yards.
I like it. All righty. Next matchup here. We got the Browns. We got the Texans. Browns favored by 3, over under 40.5.
I'm taking Cleveland to cover this one. No CJ Stroud. Houston, yes, both teams are fighting for playoff relevance there in the wild card. But I think Cleveland's defense is really what seals the deal here. Joe Flacco, as we spent a good amount of time talking about, has been playing extremely well. I think that continues, and the Browns unfortunately have another one slip away because they just don't have their quarterback here. So, or the Texans have another one slip away because they don't have their quarterback here. So, taking Cleveland, taking the under, just because I do think this game will be ugly here for a little while, and then we'll start seeing points in the second half. But first half would be kind of ugly, I think.
Yeah, I think you very well might be right on this one. This is one that I don't think that no CJ Stroud. I don't know the Texans can manage to put up enough points to keep this thing with that, much less win. So I am going to take Cleveland, even though Cleveland's defense hasn't played as good on the road as they do at home. But I do think that we see the under come into play, right? Not going to surprise me when this one we look up, we see a 20-14 type of game. Flacco, right? Again, we spent all that time talking about him. I'm going to take the prop on him. A Flacco to go over 250.5 passing yards.
Very good. I'm gonna take Jerome Ford over 41.5. They seem to feature him a lot in the first half. Again, like I said, I think the first half's gonna be kind of boring, kind of slow, but I think he can find a way to end up with 55 rushing yards or so in this game, and most of it's probably gonna be in the first half.
Fair enough. All righty, we got the Jags and the Bucks. Bucks favored by 1.5. The total 42.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking Tampa Bay at home, mainly because I don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to play. But Tampa Bay, they're still scrapping, right? They're scrapping for the division because of the NFC South is not that great of a conference or a division at this moment. So Tampa Bay is still absolutely alive and in it. And I think we see the over here. I think we're actually going to see some points in this game. So I like that. I like it with Tampa Bay being able to take advantage of that at home, and they ultimately win this game.
Fair enough. Yeah, I like Tampa at home here as well. I like the over. I do think that we see some points here. I think we get a good showing out of Baker Mayfield as well, right? Baker's been playing pretty well as of late. Tampa, the way that the defense is going to set up here, I think that we're going to see a pretty good game out of both or out of Mike Evans and Baker. But I'm going to take the prop on Baker of over 235.5 passing yards.
I like that because I'm taking Baker over 1.5 passing touchdowns this game.
Fair enough. It's a Baker extravaganza here on the show. I tell you, man, the legend of Baker, it just continues to grow. So
Something like that.
How who would have thought that in week 16 we were talking about Baker and fantasy relevance here, but we are. All right, moving along. The Cardinals, the Bears favored by 4. The over under 42.5. Thoughts on this one?
Taking Chicago in this game. They've been playing better, right? They've been aggressive. They're definitely not anybody's doormat. So I'm gonna take Chicago here. I think we do end up seeing some points in kind of a game that has some garbage time, if you will, behind it. But Chicago at home, I do think Arizona's going to struggle a little bit coming up there and getting the ball moving right away, unless it's to Trey McBride. But in this game in general, I think we could see a lot of action out of both tight ends.
Yeah, fair enough. I do think that Arizona manages to keep this thing within a field goal, right? Like 3 points is where I'm seeing this one come to play. I'm right there with you, though. I think that we see some points get put on the board. One of the things that I'm looking for is James Conner over 51.5 rushing yards. I think that he's going to be able to manage to help move the ball a little bit, and we'll see a pretty good game out of him.
No, I'm taking Cole Kmet over 3.5 receptions.
Very good. All right, let's hit up the next one. We got the Cowboys. We got the Dolphins. Dolphins favored by 1.5. The over under 49.5.
The Cowboys have only won one game against a team with a winning record this year. Like, let's sink that in. We're in week 16. They've had multiple opportunities to kind of show up to the plate and show that they are ready to ascend, and they have not been able to do it. So now they're going to go back on the road, and they're playing a Miami team who is trying to hold off Buffalo for the AFC East, as well as keep within striking distance to Baltimore for the number 1 overall seed. Cowboys, I think, are going to fall a little bit short this week, and I'm going to take the under in this game because, why not? It's a game that we should see Star Wars type numbers. I'm going to pivot where everyone else says it's going to go over. I'm going to pivot and take the under.
Fair enough. I am just going to play contrarian on this one. So I saw the same stat where Dallas is, just struggled against teams with winning records. And all of those things, every time I sit there and I see those, I'm like, oh, that's and start going through that. I always end up missing that call. So I'm just going to play into it and be like, nope, Dallas is gonna figure it out here on the road against a Dolphins team that also struggles to put wins against teams with winning records. So I think that we see the Cowboys ended up pulling this one out on the road. I do want to see Star Wars numbers out of this one. I think that we can get there. So I'm going to say that we go the over. One of the props that I'm looking for, though, is Devon Achane to go under 47.5 rushing yards.
I'm going to take Brandon Cooks over 37.5 receiving yards in this game.
Fair enough. All righty. We got the Broncos. We got the Patriots. Broncos favored by 7. The total on this 40 over under 34.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm going to take New England. I think 7 points is way too much for the Denver Broncos right now. Yes, they're going to be at home. I think that helps them a little bit, but it's a big number for the Broncos to cover. So, yes, I think they come away with a victory here. So I do like them on the money line, but I think it's going to be well within that 7 points. So I'm taking New England, and I'm going to take the under because the best part about New England is their defense. So I think both teams are going to be I say slugging it out, but it's going to be a little bit tighter here than most people think.
Fair enough. I'm right there with you. I do think that the Broncos, while much improved, right, like them winning the game by full possession, 7 points. I just can't subscribe to that one yet. So I'm going to take New England to sneak inside this one. I'm going to take the under. So I'm right there with you. Not going to surprise when we look up and we see this one be a 17-14 type of game, right? Like I think that's very much in the realm of possibility. One of the props I really liked though was Zappy to go over 184.5 passing yards.
I take Samaje Perine over 5.5 rushing yards. Like it just seems so low that, yeah, what the heck? I might as well take a stab on this. With guy breaks one for 10 or 12 yards. He more than covers a negative play if it happens later on here. So I guess kind of a dark horse with it being set so low, but at the same time, I like these. I do like props where one good play and one well blocked and executed play can get a guy to his prop total, and that's exactly what this does for me.
Yeah, it certainly does. All right, let's head to the Monday games here. We've got the Raiders, we've got the Chiefs. Chiefs favored by 10, the over under 40.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking Kansas, or no, excuse me, I'm taking Las Vegas to cover the 10 points. Again, Kansas City on the money line. Yes, I can completely buy that. 10 points with as wishy-washy as this Chiefs offense has been, it is a lot. So I'm going to err on the side of caution here, and I'm going to take Kansas City to or golly, I keep saying it. The Raiders to cover the 10 points, but I do think we get to the over here. 40.5 is just a touch too low for my taste in this game. So I think we get over the total, but the Raiders cover.
I like that call on the over. Yeah, this is one that every time that we kind of look at these things and go, oh my, right, like the Raiders just hung 63, right? Like I'm not saying that they're going to do that again this week, but an offense that certainly somehow managed to put up that many points, not an easy feat to do. So, and the Raiders at this point can still try and play some spoilers for the Chiefs. This is a divisional game here. I think that's what they're going to try and do. So I don't know that Kansas City manages to, get the 10 here, right? Like 7 points, sure. But so I'm going to call for the Raiders to sneak inside that. I'm going to call for the over on this one. And I do think that Jacoby Myers goes over 37.5 receiving yards.
Very good. I have Aiden O'Connell with over half of an interception. I think Kansas City turns him over at least once.
Yeah, I could certainly see that one. All righty, let's take a look at the next matchup. We got the Giants. We got the Eagles. Eagles favored by 13.5. The over under 43.5.
All right. I'm taking Philly at home to finally right the ship here, right? Against a Giants team that did not look overly good against the Saints. Yes, the defense is probably the strongest part of this unit, but we saw what the Cowboys were able to do against the Giants twice offensively, and surely the Eagles will be able to do something similar in the passing game as to what the Cowboys did. So, big game for AJ Brown here coming up, but I am going to take the Eagles, and I'm even going to take the over because I think the Giants will be able to put up some points here for a little while and kind of help make sure that we get over this 43.5.
Fair enough. I think that this one's going to. I'm kind of going the opposite approach here. I do think that we see the under come into play. Divisional game here, and I think this one's going to just be a lower scoring affair. Not going to surprise me when we see this thing. Look up and we get to a 24 to 14 type of deal here. So I do think that the Giants managed to sneak inside that 13.5. I'm going to take the under. One of the props I like is Barkley to go over 53.5 rushing yards.
I got Tommy DeVito over. That was terrible. Sorry. Over 185.5 passing yards. Again, Philly's been so forgiving on the back end here that I think DeVito's going to be able to find some success, and if nothing else, garbage time, right? So even if he's sitting at 140 yards or something going into the last half of the fourth quarter, I think that he's going to find some garbage time yardage here, push him over the top.
Fair enough. I like it. All right. The matchup that I think everybody's waiting for is this Monday night game, and that is the San Francisco 49ers, the Baltimore Ravens. San Francisco favored by 6. The over-under on this one set at 47.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking San Francisco. So every time that they've had a challenge, right? The Cowboys, the Eagles, even the Jacksonville game, right? With them losing 3 straight, coming off a bye, anytime that they needed to prove themselves and really show how good they were, they came out and blew the doors off of teams. A lot of people are touting this as a possible Super Bowl preview. And I think San Francisco being at home is a huge reason why I like this so much. But nevertheless, I think San Francisco covers the 6. I think we see a 7+ point game here with them being at home. But I do think we see the under. Points will become tight in this game. Again, I think the first half could be rather slow and then it opens up a bit in the second half. But regardless of, I think 47.5 is a little rich for my blood. So I'm taking the under.
Fair enough. Yeah, I see this one as like a 24-20 type of score here. And that's kind of where I'm seeing that one. So I am right there with you on the under. I do think the Baltimore manages to get inside that 6 points there. As far as a prop, I like CMC anytime touchdown. So yeah, we'll just hop back on that CMC touchdown train here.
Sorry, I was reading what's coming next. I did a bad job. I'm taking Brock Purdy over 252.5. He's just been able to find guys for chunk yardage and just finds a way to get there. So, yes, product of the Kyle Shanahan offense. Absolutely. Does he have star players around him? Yes, definitely. And can those star players go for big chunks of yardage at any given time? You're damn right. So I think all that points towards him being over 252.5 passing yards.
I like it. All right, Jelly of the Month had a question for us. Half point PPR, lost Keenan, so starting 3 running backs, sit 1, Barkley versus Philadelphia, Monty versus Minnesota, Ty Chandler versus Detroit, or A-Chan versus Dallas.
I'm sitting Ty Chandler versus Detroit because I want the upside of A-Chan. Barkley's the no-brainer smash, and Monty, I think he falls into the end zone against Minnesota, right? We've seen a lot of Gibbs here the last couple of weeks. I think we see Monty be able to do his thing and get into the end zone a little bit while they're figuring out all the toys here a little bit. So Chandler probably has the toughest matchup against Detroit. and that's the one that I would want the least bit of. If there's anything negative that goes sideways with Achan and the toe, then obviously you're pivoting right back to Chandler.
Correct. Yeah, I've got nothing to add. I think that was well said. So, cosign. All righty, guys. If y'all have any other questions, let's throw them in the chat. Let's get those things ready to rock and roll. We're gonna be wrapping it up here very quickly. Any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Merry Christmas, y'all. Right? Enjoy the time with the family, enjoy the time at home, being able to watch some good football, some bowl games, obviously the week between Christmas and New Year's with all the big time bowls, if you will. A lot of good football on TV, both in the collegiate and NFL state. If you're following the recruiting trail, obviously we had National Signing Day, so that's always fun. I mean, lots of football stuff coming that have just been here or coming up down the pike over the next 10 to 14 days. So enjoy it. It's a great time of year, but y'all have a Merry Christmas. And if you guys have any more questions, feel free to hit us up. Derek and I are never far from our devices, if you will. So that way we can get back to people just as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for tuning in. Y'all have a Merry Christmas. Programming note. This Tuesday show, we've had some things come up, and we are going to have to be punting on that show. Good news is we'll be back Friday for you this next week so that we can help y'all get those things ready, set to go for championship week here. But that's going to do it for us. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.